Today we're going to have conversations about a couple different things. We're going to be talking about quality, and we're going to be talking about intelligence, which should make things very interesting indeed. More specifically, we're going to be talking about audience intelligence, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because this has been a conversation that has come up around a lot, because my channel is all about talking about stories and talking about story quality, and oftentimes I will get comments from people telling me that quality does not matter in movies. Quality does not matter whatsoever, because for every movie that I can say is good, that did well, there is a bad movie that did well, and that there are good movies out there that have been overlooked. This conversation has also come up in terms of talking about how people interpret stories these days, where a lot of times people will misinterpret the intentions of stories. Cautionary tales are oftentimes misunderstood, and it brings the question to hand: are audiences just dumb? Are people at large, the masses, just foolish idiots? Are audiences stupid? Are we stupid? Are you stupid? Am I stupid? If I was a stupid person, would I be smart enough to know it?
Can you remember the tallest man you've ever seen?
If Obi-Wan Kenobi showed up at a party and did his mind trick on you, would you fall for it? And wouldn't that be a horrible mess if you had a Jedi do a Jedi mind trick on you and fool you, and it was a reveal to all your friends that you are in fact weak-minded? That would be a pretty low blow. But let's get serious and let's talk about this conversation. Does quality matter? And is there such a thing as quality in art? Is art entirely subjective? Is it all just random for what people like, and when a big mass of people tend to like something? Well, let's get into that first. Is art just subjective? Is there just no rhyme or reason to why something is successful or unsuccessful? Well, there is good art and bad art. I will say that there is such thing as bad art and good art. There is such thing as measuring why people might like something and why people might not like something, but it gets a little bit more complicated than that. For example, when we're talking about a movie and you can mention that something doesn't make sense in it, you can mention that something doesn't explain itself, that is an objective statement. If you can go into a movie and say it doesn't do this, and this means there is a gap where something isn't explained or something doesn't make sense, then that is an objective statement about that, and you could go on to use that to make an argument as this is not very well made, it did not explain itself very well. And the reason why I would say that that is an objectivity in storytelling is because the purpose of telling a story is you're trying to immerse somebody in an experience. That is what I'm trying to get when I'm going into a story. That is what most people are trying to get. And, you know, it's just like when you tell a lie. Storytelling is telling a lie that people are willing to believe. But just like if you tell a lie and there's inconsistencies in your lie and people are going to notice and it's going to break them away from what you're saying, make them disbelieve you, if you are writing a story and you are having something like, say, inconsistencies, then that is also going to break people's immersion. Now, that is once again an objective argument talking about a story, but the subjective part is, let's say that there's a plot hole in a movie, but a person doesn't let it bother them. Like maybe they're overall enjoying the movie, and so that part of it didn't break it for them, and that they had an overall good experience with the movie, or maybe there's some other element even apart from the flaws that they really latched onto, and therefore they enjoyed it. Well, that is the subjective part of art. You know, a person having an experience with something regardless of what it is doing is the subjective part of it. So art has both objective and subjective qualities to it, and it gets complicated to talk about because here's the thing: when I'm doing a review, I'm trying to be objective. I'm taking my own feelings and thoughts on something, but I'm also trying to take into consideration of how other people feel. So if I'm reviewing a movie and it has a ton of plot holes in it, I'm going to give it a negative review because I can say most people would probably not be immersed in this. Most people would probably not enjoy this because it doesn't make any sense. However, that doesn't mean that it is impossible for someone to enjoy it because of, once again, the subjective part. I could probably look at a movie that is badly made and say most people would not enjoy this because it is badly made, but that doesn't mean that someone might enjoy something that's badly made, you know, maybe because they like things that are badly made for the sake of it, if it's laughable or something like that, or silly, or maybe there's just an element of it that reminds them of something in their life, or just gives them, you know, some sort of joy out of it or some sort of experience that's entertaining, that they like that thing. And that is the complexity of art and reviewing art. Just because there is such a subjective part of art does not mean that there aren't also objective parts, and that things can't be badly structured, things can't be poorly made. Another example of good art versus bad art is like when I was younger, there was an assignment I was given. I was like 6, okay, and it was tell a story for this art thing, and I didn't have an idea at the time. And I feel really bad about that because my profession is writer right now. But so the story I wrote was Sally was a clown and she wanted to be a clown, so she became a clown. The end. That was my story. I would say that that was bad art because I didn't actually tell a story. I didn't actually give anything with that. I didn't actually develop anything. I didn't actually create any sort of experience or say anything with it or entertain people with that. I was just being rushed and lazy. So yeah, there is bad art and there is good art, and there is objective and subjective qualities to it that both need to be considered. But because of these subjective parts of it, it would make some people believe that we should make no attempt to make something of quality. Because when we're talking about movies specifically, you see it at times that a bad movie will do really, really well. I'll use Super Mario Brothers as an example. It's really not a great movie. Like, none of it's developed. People just say things and then go to the next scene. It's there mainly to just like capture the feel of the games and be a cash grab, but it made lots and lots of money. Suicide Squad, horrible movie, made lots of money. Godzilla Minus One, great movie, did not make a lot of money. Top Gun Maverick, good movie, made a lot of money. So we see that all kinds of reactions can happen with it. So one would wonder and argue, okay, why do you care about quality at all? It doesn't seem like it actually matters. But here's my thing is I don't agree that we should just throw spaghetti at the wall to see what sticks with storytelling, that you can't be educated about what people would want and what is going to draw people into a story and how to get those emotions out of people, how to make them feel something for something, because that is your job as a storyteller. You're trying to get people to feel something. You're trying to get them to believe something. And it would seem that a lot of people in Hollywood, these executives, who try to look at stories and movies as just another product like a toy, they want to find a formula that works. They want to find something solid so they can always make money. But unfortunately, fiction and selling fiction is just a bit more complicated by that. But being complicated does not mean that you cannot study it and educate yourself on it and realize why people are gravitating towards certain movies over others in different scenarios and case-by-case basis. The best way to figure it out is start answering questions about why something was successful and why something wasn't. One of the things that people have levied against me to say that quality doesn't matter, audiences are just stupid and they just go to whatever entertains them, there is no reason to try to make something good, is the debate between Godzilla Minus One and Godzilla X Kong. Godzilla Minus One was a very intelligent movie. The characters were very well developed. It had a very grounded storyline. The CGI was amazing. The Godzilla was used to great effect, but it did not make nearly as much money as Godzilla X Kong. Godzilla X Kong, which is the equivalent of having a King Kong beat a monkey against your face constantly with how mind-numbingly stupid it was. It was mind-numbingly stupid. Guess what? Godzilla X Kong is one of the highest grossing movies of the year, which honestly is not saying much. But the reason why I find that argument is very disingenuous is because you're completely ignoring the context of both these movies. Yes, they're both Godzilla. Yes, they're both very famous brands people know. But Godzilla Minus One was a foreign film, as a straight up made from Japan, and as such, it did not get nearly the same amount of marketing as Godzilla X Kong in the US. It did not get nearly the same amount of theaters in the US. A lot of people didn't even know it existed, and not to mention, it was a subtitled film, which is why a lot of foreign films can struggle in the US. A lot of people are not willing to watch subtitles. That said, Godzilla Minus One did incredibly for what it was, because the people who did see it loved it and spread the word around and brought more people into the theaters. And that is a great example of quality helping a film, even a film as undermarketed as this one. And you can say, well, what makes Godzilla Minus One a quality film? For the reasons I just stated. We have a character introduced who is well developed throughout the film, who is given human elements to them to connect to the audience. In fact, all the characters are given their own distinct personalities and what they represent in the story as it's filling out its narrative of a post-war Japan. It's connected to real life and it has something to say about that real life event. And Godzilla, when he comes in, he's both utilized as very much a metaphor for post-war trauma and not being able to let go show of what happened in the war, but he's also an epic and amazing creature to watch. And, I can go to those things and say this is what people like. Now, some of those things are why people like Godzilla X Kong. They like to see monsters bashing it out. However, it is an idiotic film when the characters are barely drawn. They're there to just be quirky and silly. The character work is secondary, and the writer slapped it on and admitted that. It really doesn't matter. It's just there to get CGI monsters hitting each other, and Godzilla is barely even in the film. So why are people going to this movie over Godzilla Minus One? Well, first of all, because Godzilla X Kong, once again, it's the popular brand, but it actually had the marketing in America, for one thing. It actually was blared out that it exists, and a lot of people will just go to see a dumb movie with monsters bashing each other over the head. That said, Godzilla X Kong hasn't actually made that much. It just looks like it made a lot because barely any movies are making anything this year. There's barely anything out. I used to go to the theater all the time. I've barely been going this year because there's barely anything out. But no one is saying that Godzilla X Kong is a brilliant exploration of film or anything. I think people are pretty honest. They just like to see dumb monsters hitting each other in that regard. I think Godzilla Minus One, had it got the marketing of Godzilla X Kong, and if more people were willing to watch a subtitled film, would have made even more money. But with this said, yeah, people will sometimes go see a bad movie for the sake of it being bad, and I honestly am that way too. One of my favorite guilty pleasures is the movie Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and that's because it's just such a weird film, and I like watching the old puppetry of it and the sort of creepiness, creepy in a good way, of the special effects. That's just me. I like old creepy special effects. Am I saying that Killer Clowns from Outer Space is a great movie? No, but I've found my own thing to be entertained by it. Would I say that it would make $1 billion at the box office? No, but sometimes people just like bad movies if they have something in it that may interest them. So with that said, it doesn't appear that audiences are actually dumb at this point. It seems that people are pretty aware of what they like and what they're going to. Super Mario, people went to see it because it was a Mario movie. No one was saying that it is the pinnacle of all art, and everyone was pretty much acknowledging its flaws. So audiences are looking a little bit smarter than I think right now. Just because you enjoy something that's dumb for the sake of dumb doesn't mean that you yourself are necessarily dumb. Though I still do not understand why people like Godzilla X Kong. I mean, I do, but you guys have higher standards. But now we're talking about standards again, and does quality matter? Because as we see here, like, people will go see bad movies sometimes. But, so does quality matter? Well, yes, it does, and I'm going to prove it to you, because what tends to last the longest is the films that are of quality. Because yes, sometimes people will have a personal guilty pleasure, like I have. Sometimes they'll go see dumb movies, but it all tends to fade away eventually. Like the Transformers franchise, the Michael Bay ones, they made a ton of money when they first came out, but now they're gone and their movies stopped making money, and those films aren't even remembered or revisited as anything at all, really, because they had no substance to them. The same thing can be said of the Disney remakes. For the longest time, they were making money and people were praising them like crazy, but eventually the bad quality picked up with it, and people started to look at them differently because time passed and they started thinking more about what was actually happening with them and how there really wasn't much to them to offer. The Lion King 2019 received $1 billion at the box office, but I haven't heard one positive word about that. It seems that some people think that's the worst movie they've ever seen because of how soulless it is. Sometimes something like nostalgia will pull people in, but ultimately bad quality will catch up to it. The movies that have lasted the longest, by and large, are the ones that have good structure, good characters, themes that were really thoughtful. You don't have to be super deep, but sometimes a really simple story that is just well structured will sell. Like The Terminator, super simple story, but very well structured. That is why that movie was so successful. That is why it is one of the movies that is remembered today. Most movies will be entirely forgotten, but the ones that of quality are the ones that tend to last. And the reason why they last is because they give us something very positive, these films. The original Star Wars, or the Lord of the Rings especially, the original Marvel movies, the original Disney films, the Golden Age, the Renaissance, many of Alfred Hitchcock's classics. lots of 70s and 80s horror movies. These are the ones that have really stuck with us through just a message or a character or just the intrigue of a story or the mystique of that. They give us new experiences to reflect on through a safe lens. They give us something to connect with other people over. And when there's something of actual substance to them, then that is why they last. And that is why they are important. And that is why it's important for me to advocate for the best artwork possible, for other people to do their best, for me to do my best. And it's the same thing as creating videos on YouTube. The scary thing about art is that there is that subjective element where you never know for sure if something is going to work out or not. And on YouTube, we're all slaves to the almighty algorithm. I could make an excellent video, but if it's just a subject that people aren't interested in, then no one's going to watch it. But that does not mean that I can't be educated on the topics that people are interested in, or in fiction. If I hopefully can transfer over to doing fiction, then what kind of stories do people want to hear right now? And to do my best to give people the absolute best version of those stories that I can. Just because there are times when good movies are overlooked, maybe it wasn't because it was what people were looking for at the time, maybe the marketing wasn't good, or, any number of reasons, does not mean that you shouldn't try to make the best artwork that you can, because those are the things that generally last. Making a good product is the first step to getting something to sell, and that's how you can be successful as a storyteller, if you understand the quality and how to sell something to people, and understand that you are working with something that is a little bit more fickle than just selling hamburgers. Selling artwork is basically, and trying to be successful at it consistently, is basically like making educated guesses, but you can make those educated guesses. So, to conclude, no, I would not say that the audiences are dumb. I say that audiences know what they want and why they want it. I think that audiences can take a lot more than people expect them to take. I think that it's an important first step to actually try to understand audiences and respect their intelligence to understand what they want in the first place. But that is all I got for you guys today. My short film is, thankfully, pretty much done. I just have to do the music and just some more odd edits just to try to fix it up, and then it will be released on here. I hope you will stay tuned for that. I just want to get better with my filmmaking. Thank you, patrons, as always, for supporting my channel. I'll have more great videos for you guys out in the future, and I will see you guys next time.